We've heard there a little bit of the case for why you're campaigning for an extension of the furlough. How much sympathy do you have for Andy Haldane's point of view, though, that some of these jobs just aren't coming back? And so, in his view, it's not right to support them any longer.
Well, good morning, Anna. And yes, good to talk to you. In generally, the JRS, the Job Retention Scheme, has been incredibly successful, very helpful during this very, very difficult period for many manufacturers. What we're saying now is we understand the government is under some pressure to bring this to a close, and we're in that tapering phase now. But there are some critical sectors of our manufacturing base where the recovery is taking a lot longer, particularly in commercial aerospace manufacturing, where we manufacture components and systems for aircraft, very successful sector in the UK, and automotive, which is undergoing some structural changes there. You could also make the case for foundation industries like steel manufacturing in the country, which are seeing a much slower pickup in demand. And as these particularly interesting sectors, these sectors that are so vital, are taking much longer to recover, we think there is a real case to be made now for some sectoral support, similar, as you said, to the ones we've seen across other European countries, for those areas which are so valuable. I mean, if you take automotive and aerospace, for example, in the UK, they account for nearly £6 billion of our innovation investment in R&D, for example. These are highly skilled jobs, very valuable to the economy, and what we don't want to see is that disappearing quickly because we weren't able to support them whilst those sectors recover.
Who do you represent these giant manufacturers, Stephen? Because I know a lot of small businesses, craftsmen in Great Britain like Aero Leathers or DaVita Helmets, Bill Kelso, little companies that have had to basically shut up shop during this crisis, and I'm not sure if they're going to be able to open their doors again.
Well, you're right. We represent the whole spectrum of companies. We have thousands of manufacturers in membership, and they range from the very large ones to, of course, all the smaller companies. The critical thing about the smaller companies is that in the news, in the media, we often report the headline numbers of the big companies. They're the ones we are tracking. But it's their supply chain that's suffering the most. So when you look at one of the large aircraft, aerostructures companies, one of the big primes making redundancies, often it's multiplied by 5 in terms of the supply chain. So the effect on those SMEs is critical, and what we're calling is a sectoral approach so the government can support those sectors which are so important to our economy going forward.
And Stephen, I understand your focus on manufacturing clearly because that's what your body does, your organisation does. But if you ask government to pick sectors, they're going to be having to draw a line somewhere, aren't they? And there are always going to be then businesses that say, hang on, why do they get saved and we don't get saved, or get support and we don't get support? Maybe that's why other organisations like the CBI are calling for something a bit different. They say continue to support businesses in general, but just at a much lower level. Would that not be a better approach?
You can do that in particular. Of course, there needs to be continued support for the general business community. That's right. But what we're trying to really call out here is there are some incredibly valuable sectors here with highly skilled workers that because of structural changes, some of them imposed by government changes, I mean, in terms of restriction of air travel, that's had a knock-on effect on the whole manufacturing base, for example. When we're looking at changes in the automotive market, that's having a knock-on effect coupled with the demand downflow. So basically, there's a really strong case there to preserve those ones. But of course, other sectors do need similar support, and we don't deny that. But we do understand very clearly in our discussions with Treasury that there needs to be an end to the job retention scheme as it sits at the moment as a very broad-brushed approach. But what we're calling for here is let's examine some sectors and let's look at protecting those sectors which are so important to our economy for the future, particularly as we want to grow our way out of it over next year. I mean, we need to make sure those people, those jobs are still there. They're highly skilled jobs. They're not redeployed into some other sector, and we're able to grow from that base. That's really important for us at this stage.
I just want to quickly ask, Stephen, is there going to be a way for UK manufacturers that want to sell into the EU to just open small bases in Europe and finish products to get them out without tariffs? Or are European consumers going to just have to stop buying UK products after January 1st?
Well, I think the situation with Europe, of course, is a highly integrated one. We're talking about not just finished goods. We're talking about the supply in both directions of our integrated supply chain components. So we use there's a lot of trade that goes backwards and forwards between us, which is to do with manufactured parts in both directions. And over the last 25 years, we've become highly integrated in that manufacturing. You've heard terms like just-in-time, which is why we need frictionless trade at the border so that people can continue to do that. So the concern, if we don't get a good deal, is around limiting that trade and people looking elsewhere for their supply chain as well as for finished goods. So it's very complicated. We do have a lot of companies that, of course, have got set up European operations. But again, they're doing that on the basis largely of this integrated supply chain route. And I think it's a lot deeper than just simply selling finished goods. It's a much more integrated relationship than that. And that's the point that we've been making to government.